Oh yeah, what's going on, Game Weepers? This is Eags, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the 3 most broken champs for each role in League of Legends for patch 12.16. They will be hitting the Rift in a few days' time, and some of these champions are going to give you free LP. Let me just say, some of these are super busted at the moment, and the balance team is doing nothing about them, so to know who the champions are, make sure you stick around for the whole video, of course. But just before we get into the tier list, guys, this video is sponsored by Outplayed, the ultimate video capturing app for gamers like us. So while playing, the Outplayed app is going to automatically capture your best moments and biggest plays on the Rift, and you can also manually record with a simple hotkey. Now, once your match is over, you can scroll through your clips, you can select the ones you want to show the world, share them with your friends on Discord and YouTube, and there's also a really easy to use video editor, so you can edit those clips so they look super clean for your champion main subreddit to watch and admire. And even if you're not playing League, the Outplayed application supports over 300 games. So if you want an easy to use challenger application to record your games, to record your highlights, Outplayed is definitely it. Check out those links in the description down below. So we'll start by talking about the best top laners for 12.16, and the top laner coming in at number 3 is Olaf. And even though Olaf got, well, kind of nerfed, recently he really hasn't fallen off as being one of the best top laners in the game, not just statistically, in terms of win rates. He's an S or S plus tier champion in pretty much every single elo, and one of the great things about picking Olaf in the top lane if you're in Champ Select, most people are probably going to think you're in the jungle. So when they pick their top laner, they don't actually realize they can counter pick you, and they end up picking a really bad champion into Olaf, and you just dumpster them. Also, Olaf doesn't really have many hard counters in the top lane, so you're a really big threat in a lot of lanes. So you can't even think about blind picking him, but regardless of when you pick Olaf in champion selection, with Flash and Ghost or Ghost and Ignite in certain matchups, the champion is just an absolute weapon, but he is not as good as number 2 on the countdown, this being Darius. And because Darius is not getting nerfed in 12.16, it is impossible for me not to put him on this countdown, because let's face it, guys, Darius in the top lane is just a monster at the moment. Because of the new durability patch, I mean, it's really been the case since 12.10, right? Darius has been an S plus tier champion, and there's really been no nerfs or anything that's really impacted it as far as your items go, your abilities go, your stats go. Like, what has really changed? This dude is still going to be one of the best top laners for the foreseeable future until the balance team actually decide to nerf him. The Hemorrhage stacking, the Conqueror stacking, he is still going to be too good on the Rift in 12.16, and that's also the case for the number 1 top laner in 12.16, this being Aatrox. Now, guys, if you're not playing Aatrox at the moment and you are a top lane main, let me just say something, you have lost your minds. This champion is beyond broken. Like, if you thought Olaf and Darius were good, Aatrox is just another level. By running Ignite and rushing a Serrated Dirk and then going Eclipse as your mythic, stop going Gore Drinker. If you're going Gore Drinker, you are trolling. Aatrox with Ignite is the scariest champion, honestly, probably on the Rift, not even just in the top lane. If you land a full combo, you'll probably one-shot someone, especially with Ignite. It doesn't even matter if they're a tank or a bruiser, who cares? You do so much damage to them, and remember, that Aatrox buff not so long ago that increased your sweet spot damage for your Qs, if you're really skilled at Aatrox, this becomes even more deadly, especially when you go Serrated Dirk because of the lethality, the attack damage once you get Eclipse as well. Even the shield and the movement speed from Eclipse is super useful as well, and the Omnivamp. Remember that Aatrox's healing a couple of patches ago did get hit, so by going the Omnivamp in Eclipse, it actually kind of makes up for it. So Aatrox is the number 1 top laner. Please pick him or ban him. He is just that busted. Now, moving into the jungle role here, number 3. Well, this champion, the AP ratio buffs that Riot were going to give Diana in 12.16, they have actually removed them. Well done. They finally came to their senses. So for Diana in 12.16, you're just getting nerfed. So the passive damage you get, the base damage is actually down in the late game. Now, how big of an impact will this have? Honestly, probably nothing, which is why Diana is still a top 3 jungle in our countdown. And one of the big reasons why is because of that really annoying build, Nash's Tooth into Sunfire Aegis. Because Riot aren't really doing anything to Sunfire. It's still going to be just as good on Diana. It's probably not as good anymore on Yone or maybe other champions who aren't actually tanks who might be able to abuse the item, but Diana it still works on. So I don't know why Riot went after Diana. Why not just nerf Sunfire Aegis? And then Diana might be able to be played with Rocket Belt, how she is kind of intended to be played. So for those reasons, Diana is the 3rd best jungler. If you need some AP in your team, I'd highly recommend picking her. But if you need some AD on your team and you actually just want to 1v9 games with a really broken champion innately, then I'd highly recommend you guys to pick Bel'Veth in 12.16, this champion. Even though her scaling and lots of stats of hers got nerfed a few patches ago, it's just really the fact, guys, that her E, the damage reduction, and of course the extra range she has. This went up from 125 to 175, and it's kind of like the attack range buff to Master Yi as well. So that specific buff has really kept Bel'Veth still in the top tier jungle champions, and that's why she's number 2. But both of these, Bel'Veth and Diana, are beaten to the number 1 position by an AP champion who, to be honest, is just too good to pass pass up on, and he's even getting banned a heck of a lot more these days, this being Fiddlesticks. So because of the Crow Storm nerf in particular to the base damage and the AP ratio, think about that for Fiddlesticks. Your ultimate is your identity. Without your ultimate, I mean, you might as well be a stick. So the extra damage in your Crow Storm has been huge, and this is really the big reason why Fiddlesticks is the #1 jungler. And we should mention the Q buff as well as the extra duration, and that, yes, for sure, that will have some sort of impact, but the extra damage in your Crow Storm has made Fiddlesticks the nut jungler for 12-15 and 12-16 as well. Now heading to the mid lane here, the 3 best champions, well, none of these, and I'm kind of surprised by this, are getting nerfed in 12-16. So in number 3, this is Sylas. Now because of those buffs not so long ago to Sylas, so in terms of his cooldowns, his damage, these have really helped him, because he has fallen off a little bit since 12-15 because of all the sustain nerfs, right? So second wind getting nerfed. You're not going to be regenerating as much HP. Also health pots, refillables, corrupting. You're probably not going corrupting, right? But the fact is, guys, you can't sustain through all the poke in the mid lane now. So yes, Sylas is a little worse, but he's just still innately strong across every single elo. He's still getting picked and banned in pro play. And to be honest, in solo queue, if you're not picking or banning him, then I think you're really missing a trick. Unless you've got like some sort of answer to Sylas in the mid lane, like Azir, or maybe something like Aurelia, Yone, an attack damage champion who can really get in his face and cause some trouble. I just think the champion is too good still. Now coming in at number 2 is a champion who is currently frothing the Scorch buff from 12-15, this being Zed. And of course, Zed actually got buffed in 12-15 as well, so the energy cost for your E has gone down to 40 from 50. This is really nice because you can use your E more, especially against melee champions. This is going to be really useful because when they jump in you, like a Yasuo for example, or a Yone, Akali, Sylas, you can be more aggressive knowing that you have that energy in your back pocket. Also, your W's range being infinite, so you can press W from anywhere on the map. It doesn't matter where your shadow is. I'm not really sure like how much of an impact this has had, but it is nice. But the real buff to Zed has been the Scorch buff, because Scorch is dealing more damage when you run Transcendence and then you run Scorch as your sorcery tree, as your secondary tree. It just feels like Zed deals so much more damage in one combo you can kill someone with, especially when you're running Electrocute, the burst damage is all there. So Zed is in a really strong spot at the moment in the mid lane. That's why he's number 2. But Zed and Sylas, they're actually not the strongest mid laner in the game right now, and for 12-16 as well. And the reason Vex is going to continue to be number 1 is because there's no nerfs. And to be honest, I don't really know how. Like, how can you have a champion who's got a Q on a 4-second cooldown at level 9? It just sounds super busted, and because of the extra AP ratio in your Q as well, once you get to level 9, you might even have Luden's Tempest, your Mythic item, you might even have Sorcerer Shoes as well. You just deal so much damage. Your wave clear as well, remember? This is better because your Q's on such a low cooldown, the poke you have, and I think Vex as well is so good because you're not like a typical mage kind of, you know, a mobile mid laner. You have the mobility because of your ultimate, you also have amazing gank setup, and you're an excellent counter against so many champions. Like any champion that wants to jump into you, your passive just completely cucks them, which is great for solo queue because most people are probably going to pick Assassin. These champions just hate playing against Vex, so she is the number 1 mid. Make sure you play her before she gets nerfed. Now moving down to the bottom lane, guys, we'll start with the AD carries, and coming in at number 3, this is Nilah. And Nilah, to be honest, I don't think I've seen an amazing Nilah player in solo queue, but the stats speak for themselves. This champion is an S+ tier champion in the majority of elos, and I think that's really because most people are now starting to understand how to play this champion. Yes, okay, your laning phase might not be that strong, but the real strength of Nilah is that shield passive you have. This just makes Nilah very hard to kill and actually take down, and once you do get to that mid to late game, you become one of the scariest ADCs to go against because you are impossible to kill, and your DPS at that stage of a game with your major items should be as high as anyone. Now coming in at number 2 for the AD carries, we have Draven. Now I understand that Draven's Q damage, the damage is getting nerfed by 5. Okay, I hear you guys screaming at me, but here's the thing, is this really going to discourage Draven players from still crushing lane and still winning games? Honestly, I don't think so. You still get so much gold from your adoration stacks, you're still benefiting from Eclipse, giving you more movement speed for each major item you have, the Essence Reaver spike is still really good, and because lots of AD carries, to be honest, just aren't that strong at the moment, Draven just carves up play. So even this Q nerf, yes, he's not going to be as strong, but your job, which is to win the laning phase, you're a lane bully, you can still easily do your job. That's why Draven is the number 2 AD carry. I would just be maybe a little bit careful, guys, if you're blind picking Draven, because there are certain counter picks, like maybe Yasuo might even be one because of his wind wall, something like Misfortune and Ashe in the bot lane. He is a mobile, so if he gets hit by anything, he's probably going to die. But yes, Draven is the number 2 AD carry, but he's beaten to number 1 by champion, well, she's S+ tier, like a lot of these champions are pretty much every single elo, this being Samira. And we all know about Samira, right? Jumping in with the Conqueror stacking, the engaged supports with like a Leona, Nautilus, who aren't actually really that good at the moment, but I think the real strength for Samira comes in the fact that when she got buffed, so her AD per level and the actual Q's AD ratio, this means that she has scaling now. Before those buffs, she really didn't. She was really an early to mid game champion. You have to win by 15-20 minutes, otherwise you get outscaled by pretty much every AD carry. Not the case anymore. Samira has that scaling. It's a bit like a Lucian as well, because they did the same thing to Lucian. addition, they added some scaling to your kit. So as far as your passive goes and your AD per level, this means that these early game champions actually have some compensation if they don't hard stomp lane every single game, but it's still really achievable to do so. So if you guys want to pick Samira, definitely do it in 12-16. I'd probably just pay a little bit more attention though to your support. So if they are playing something like Anami, Janna, Enchantress, probably don't pick Samira because you want your passive to proc right off the CC. So Leona, Nautilus, these champions are really good, but she's the number 180 carry for 12-16. Now the other role we have to talk about, guys, this of course is the support role, and if you want these videos to continue, make sure you let us know by leaving a like down below. And starting off the support, coming in at number 3, we have Blitzcrank. And because of that Q damage buff to 100 at rank 1, and also because your ultimate buff in terms of the base damage, this means that Blitzcrank's early game, if you land one rocket grab, boom, that champion is going to die. If you land one rocket grab into your ultimate, boom, that champion is going to die. So Blitzcrank's threat is actually back, and the stats are really proving it because he's got one of the highest win rates out of all the supports in the game. So because of those buffs, Blitzcrank is back on the menu. Now coming in at number 2 is a champion well Riot actually have nerfed recently, this being Janna. But the reason Janna is on here, well, I just think her kit is just beyond broken. Like even if Riot decided to nerf this champion more and more in the future patches, I don't think it's going to change anything. She has so much going for her kit, the mobility, the peel, the kite. It just feels really frustrating to play against, and there's really not that much counterplay. Also, you might consider the new Cloud Drake, so giving more movement speed. This is also good if you're playing Janna or strong AD carries like maybe Sivir and Zeri. They work really well because of the movement speed from Janna. Again, she can keep them alive, and she's one of the easiest supports to play, and that's why in some elos her win rate is still around 53%. Now the number 1 support though, guys, for 12-16 is a champion who I think on our last support list we put her in at maybe number 2 or number 3. She's now number 1, and the reason for this is because she randomly just got buffed. So this is Zyra. Now your E, when you use your grasping roots, right after using it, you actually get locked into the animation, right? So this actually scaled from 0.15 seconds to 0.4 seconds. Now it's just going to be a flat 0.15 seconds, which means that when you're using your E in the late game, you can use your ultimate to follow up. You can gap close to the enemy champion, or if you need to escape, because of course you'll be using your E sometimes to keep you or a teammate alive, this is going to allow you to escape those situations and just survive more. So I think this buff is kind of stupid, but it is going to mean, so Zyra, Wivley Andrews with the new Scourge, so broken. She's the number 1 support. Lock her in if she's open. And guys, those were the 3 most broken champions for 12-16. Let us know in the comment section any thoughts or questions you have. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And of course, until our next season 12 upload, where we will reveal the 10 most underrated, so secretly OP champions of patch 12-16, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And yes, until then, this has been Iggs.